Dorry, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me down.
You just want to start by telling us a little bit about your background and the business that you've built.
Yeah, so look, my background is a hairdresser by trade, so literally completely different field to what I'm in now. DKM Blue is our core business, which is a corporate merchandise and branding. Literally started in my parents' backyard, nothing with a computer and a table. Expanded out to China at a very young age, started importing directly. So we do work with a lot of big multinationals, a lot of big uniform programs, as well as corporate merchandise, mass marketing. I've also now ventured out into a sock business as well, called Swanky socks. We're also launching a few patent products around that space as well, around new innovation within the space of product development. And yeah, we started at 20 plus years ago with nothing and a few dimes in my pocket and a burning ambition to not fail and to succeed in the world of business.
And so that entrepreneurial spirit, was that always there, burning, or was it something you learned along the way? Where's that come from?
You know what, I get told that a lot. Can you teach someone the entrepreneurship manner or that sort of vision and so forth? But look, for me, I think you either have it or you don't to a degree. And I think, you can teach the entrepreneur way to a degree, but I think it's got to be within you. It's got to be within the way you operate, the way you tick and the way you might operate. So for me, I've always had that burning desire about success and just thinking a bit different, and probably failing my high school, not having a degree in anything probably helped me further my business because for me, there was no blinkers on what I should do and what is the right way of succeeding based by the education program. For me, everything that I worked off was just about my gut instinct and my belief on how things should be done.
Yeah. So when you were young, you knew you were going to be successful in business. And so did that make school kind of irrelevant along the way?
I knew I was going to succeed. I had a desire that I was going to make it. Didn't know what field I was going to get into. I had a passion for basketball. I played basketball my life growing up and playing basketball in my earlier teens and early adult life. I'd always knew that I had the right skill set to succeed. And that's determination, focus, willpower, hunger, never giving up. And these are all the things that contribute to success in business as well as sports. So I did have that belief at a young age. And I was fortunate enough at 21, when I left hairdressing and I ended up working with my cousin in the rag trade, I found that was my core and I really loved that industry and I've been here ever since.
And the comparisons between sport and business, I personally find that fascinating because I think there's so many similarities between the two. And I think sometimes sports analogies simplify business a little bit because there is that ultimate goal of a championship, which is sometimes harder to define in business. So what do you find to be the biggest similarities between sport and business, but also where's the biggest differences? Where do they diverge?
Well, look, for me, all I could draw upon was my sport growing up. And when I started my business, all I could draw upon was my successes in the field of basketball. I think there's a lot of similarities. And, when you look at the teamwork, building out your team on a basketball court to a business environment, it's the same sort of methodologies. And all I could do was take away from my sport and apply it to business. So when you look at building out a team on the court, for me, it's like, what sort of team do I want in my business environment? Do you have your all-star players, your role players, and so forth. So for me, I always believe that if I was going to have a successful business, it has to start with me. People say you need to hire experienced and people better than you. I don't believe in that philosophy when you're building a startup business, because if I'm having people build my startup, then they decide to leave eventually, then I've got no business. Any team that you have, if you've got your all-star player, the team's going to win or lose off the back of that player. Look at Michael Jordan. You look at, the modern age of Steph Curry and all those players. Those dynasties were built around one player, and they were the focal plan, and they built the team around them. So that's something that I focus on within building my team, is what is my cast going to look like within the business world in the early stages. But then you look at training, visualization, hard work, prepping yourself to a game. These are all the things you got to do in business on a day-to-day basis. Come in before the others get in, leave before the others leave, later than the others leaving. Just sort of putting yourself out in those situations that are going to be out of your comfort zone. And that's something that I've always focused on. And that's where I've built my successes, is based on what I know in sport.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about the way you build your cast and how different people contribute to a team. I read a really good quote the other day, something to do with something Larry Bird said. And he was talking about, this must have been when he was the GM at Indiana or something like that. And he was talking about recruiting guys who played with LeBron. And he said, I'm not grabbing any of those guys that play with LeBron because they look a whole lot better when they're playing with him than when they're going to come over and play for us, right? And so that kind of gives you an insight into how that leader can make others around them better. And I just thought that was really interesting insight from him, because it's true. You often see people from LeBron's team get picked up for great contracts and they often regret those later on. But someone like Larry Bird can see the dynamics of that at play, I guess.
You look at the Chicago Bulls post-Jordan, then you look at the magnitude of what one player can bring to a city. Look at what one person can bring to a business. So I always believe that the founder of a business in my field, very different to IT and that whole space, but in my field, being a product-driven business and being a B2B, I believe the buck has to start and stop with you as a leader, and everyone else below has to sort of follow through as well. And it's about building that team culture and a good environment for you, for your team or your players or your staff to want to stay long term with you. A lot of our staff have been in our business for between 8 to 13 years. So it's not always about paying the highest amount for staff, but it's also giving them a fair value, but also giving them a great environment that they're going to enjoy being around. I've had staff leave to other companies and within a year wanting to come back in to our fold because the culture was great. I didn't get that elsewhere. And that's, to me, I put a value on the work environment and what we give within our work environment to our staff. I think there's a value in that. I put a value on that when I speak to my staff.
And in terms of, as you're leading your staff, what would you say is your single biggest strength as a leader?
I would say I'm a hard task leader because I want things done perfect, or it can be a detriment to a degree, but that's something that I've hold myself very close to, that I want everything to be perfect. I guess good leadership has to be firm. I think staff want to know that they've got a good leader that's strong-willed with his decision-making, feeling confident that he's going to lead the ship in the right direction, and know that if anything goes wrong, that he can handle situations in tough times. And, I've been through a GFC, we've been through the pandemic, and our business in those periods have gone through strength to strength. We've actually grown in those scenarios for us. So that gives staff, I would hope, comfort that they're in a good, stable environment. And as a leader, if you can give people a stable environment where they feel comfortable being in that environment, then there's that comfort for them that we're following the right leader, or we're going down the right path.
I find that really interesting because one of the quotes I read when you started talking about being perfectionist, because I'm probably similar in that regard, and it took me a long time to learn where that compromise is, right? Between being a perfectionist and spending too much time on something or whatever it might be. And I read a quote where you said, "Don't waste time being perfect."
Yeah, and I've learned it.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to say, because when I read that, it piqued my interest. And then to hear you say that you're a perfectionist, I did wonder if that was something that you learned or whether that was your initial sort of view on how to operate things. But obviously, being a perfectionist was a starting point.
Definitely. I think initially I am a perfectionist, but you got to understand at times that you've got to change the way you see things, and your staff will never have the same sort of level to what you have. That's why, leaders are wired differently and entrepreneurs are wired differently. But over time, I've evolved to learn to adapt and to sort of just get the job done, and we'll figure it out as we go. In business, you can always have a vision and a view of where you want to take it. But over time, your business could change directions based on the economy or the way things happen. So for me, it's about getting a strong foundation in place. And that's the most important thing, get your foundation right. And then wherever that wall goes, or whichever way your walls turn and go, that's, you just have to be adaptive. You can't just be stringent. This is where I'm going and not want to move. Definitely learn with age to accept that not everything's ever going to be perfect.
Well, that takes time, and that is a hard lesson to learn along the way. I remember seeing a chart, and this won't translate on a podcast, but basically the chart was a curve that just showed that if you don't spend enough time on something, it's going to be really bad. And there's a sweet spot between spending the right amount of time on something to get it to a very high quality and spending too much time to get it perfect, where you don't get value for money after a certain point. I had that chart on my desk for a long time because it reinforced that things don't have to be perfect. They just have to be at a high quality to be successful. You still have to be at a high standard, but it doesn't have to be to the point of lose time and effectiveness, I guess.
It's definitely, it's like ruling out a product. You're going to sell something for a certain dollar value, but you're spending X amount of hours to develop that. You put a cost of what that costs to develop that. So I've definitely learned that over time, and something that I try to instill with a few staff that spent too much time trying to get something right. And then you got to weigh up, the balance between profit and time as well. And that's important. So I totally agree with that as well.
And as you went along, what was the best decision you made in the business?
From starting my business, best decision I made was literally going to China at a very young age. I was 24 and being in an industry where everything's literally out of China. All our products are made in China, and a lot of products that we bring into Australia is made in China. So going to China when I was roughly around 24 years old, where China was a very closed market. If you go to Shanghai, Pudong was literally farmland, and you see how much China's evolved over the years. But I was there at a very young age where China wasn't at the forefront. A lot of our business was done out of Hong Kong because Hong Kong was seen to be the safe zone. You deal with an agent in Hong Kong who speaks English and they deal with the factories directly, and you know where your money's going. And this is where it comes down to not having that degree and just sort of go and sort of dive into things. I went to China at a young age, met a guy there who was working for an agent in Shanghai. And I sort of had a chat with him for 3-4 days, came back and told him, why don't you leave that business, that agent, and come work for me and be my partner? And, 23 years later, we're still there on a handshake agreement, which is very rare in China to happen. So we have our ups and downs, but setting up China at a very young age for me was very important to get the foundation of this business right. Everyone now is going to China directly. Everyone does things out of China. But, we've got 20 years of experience in foundations and offices and warehousing, 20 years of dealing with factories directly. We've got a relationship with the factories. We've got over 200 factories we deal with now. Where a lot of people go to China now, it's try to go on Alibaba, try to find a factory and have a potluck with dealing with a supply path up front. I don't know when you're going to get. So it is still very a tough market to navigate. But being there for 20 years now, I was at the forefront in our industry with what we did. I think that was probably the best decision I've ever made, was really just go there and just sort of try to set up at a young age.
Yeah, and your business is growing with China at that point, because that's the early days of that China boom. That's a really interesting phase to be in. Many people businesses have tried to go in there and failed, or not understood the nuance of dealing with China. How have you found that over the years in terms of the way it's changed dealing with China, and how do you find it today with the sort of the geopolitical type tensions? Does it make it harder or not?
Look, for us, it doesn't. Australia's in a position where we've got to keep importing, but we've really got no choice. We don't have the facilities or the manpower or the infrastructure locally to manufacture all the things we need. The rag trade was the first one to go. It was the highest employed industry. I think it was higher than cars. And then, when the government dropped its duties and its tariffs from China into Australia, it literally wiped out the whole manufacturing of textile in Australia. So for us, we've been adapted with it. I don't see China going anywhere in my lifetime. I think China's going to still be a major player for us and a major hub for us to import a lot of our products out of. Vietnam's coming through with textiles. You've got Bangladesh, but I can't see China changing for us in a big way for a very long time. You can see the US now protecting itself with China and starting to take its factories to India and other parts. But you're talking about, multinational companies that need to risk diverse their business. We can't risk diverse because 80% of our products are made in China, and there's no real other countries that have the infrastructure or the ability to be able to do what China's doing at the moment. So we've just embraced it. We've kept on embracing China, and we just have to partner with them. Unfortunately, from some people's views, from what they may think China's about, but for us, we have no real choice but to work with China.
Yeah, right. And in terms of the challenge that you faced along the way, business is tough. You might get to success levels and those types of things, but along the way, there's always tough times. What is the most some challenging type times that you've been through and sort of come out the other side of?
Look, I have been asked this question a lot when I speak at events, but knock on wood, I haven't had any tough times. And,
yeah, okay.
And I can't pick one, because from the start, when we started this business, I literally started with a very strong foundation. Every step on the way in this business, I never took bold challenges, bold risks. We've been self-funded from day one, taking crazy risks, growing the business organically the whole way through. And it's still grown organically. Could I have grown more and taken more adverse risks? Probably, yeah. But I could have taken bad risks and bad decision-making that could have cost us more. So I've always believed take those steady steps along the way. And as I said earlier on, during the down times, we had our growth, because when you've got cash flow and you're running a very good structured business in the good times, and you're running good overhead structures and you're not overspending, when the bad times hit and people are cutting budgets, we could go out there and spend more to grow the business more, acquire more assets. So for me, it's all about the planning, and something that I've always focused on is getting the planning right from the start. And if you get the planning right and the foundations are right, you can overcome any challenges. And if I have had issues and mistakes, it's been small ones that haven't really been issues where, like, you know what, this has cost me X, Y, Z. It's the learning. It's part of doing business. You're going to make certain mistakes that you learn along the way. But for me, I've always looked at it. Every negative is a positive in business, whether it's life, journey, experiences, or business. If I took a wrong decision, it gave me the knowledge to not do it again the next time around. But they've been decision making that haven't been costly in any way, shape, or form. That's why I've always looked at business, and why I think we're in this position right now, and why I'm grateful. I wouldn't change anything we've done moving forward.
I mean, that sort of captures, I presume, your business philosophy. I see you wrote a book called Win Big, Risk Small.
That's it behind me, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. Right. And what is there a sort of a situation where you sort of look at that and go, what I did here epitomizes that philosophy? Or is it just the way you've grown your business in general?
You know what? Look, I think it's within my character, and philosophy is your philosophy is going to be there from the start. Now, obviously, the way I think now in my 40s to the way I thought in my 20s are completely different. I'm definitely taking more bolder chances now because I'm a lot more wiser and smarter, and I understand. I can read situations completely different to a 20-year-old. And I look back in life now and say, well, geez, how did I do that at that age? Like what, And at times I get baffled, like, wow, But what I know now, I didn't know back then. But for me, I think it's just something that I've always believed in within my philosophies, and then over time you evolve it and you grow your philosophies and your values, and how you articulate and how you see your decision making. My decision making has definitely changed over time. And look, writing my book, Win Big, Risk Small, was all about the journey of starting with nothing, going from failing your high school, no degree, to basketball, to being a player agent, to part owning a team, to business decision making. And, and at the end of every chapter, I talk about my theories of business and what I've learned. For me, it's about now sharing my knowledge and trying to help people as much as I can with my story, my vision. And if they can take something from it, great. If they don't, no dramas. But I'm teaching them, or I'm sharing a journey that's life experience of what I've gone through. So it's not an educated book around philosophies that haven't been proven. My philosophies that have been proven for me, that they replicate to other people. That's up to them.
Coming from humble beginnings and becoming successful, how influential were the people around you, family and friends and those types, where you grew up?
Yeah.
How influential were those people on your forming your views on business, even though they may not have been business people necessarily or entrepreneurial? How important were the people around you in those humble beginning days, if you like, to creating the person that you became in a business sense?
Look, it's definitely challenging. I still believe I'm pretty humble and grounded, down to earth, and I've always given people time and day. I've always been polite to people. I've always respected everybody. And I think that's important, is to always respect people around you, because, no matter who you meet along the way, they could refer you to someone, or they could sort of talk, something nice about you. They can come back the other way. So for me, I think come back to your family values. I've had parents that have been very, very grounded and really instilled a lot of respect and values in us growing up. So for us, it's all about respecting people as a kid. Yes. And that's the number one thing that they taught us. It wasn't about money. So I think going through that in an ethnic background and having those bashed into you at a young age.
Growing up Italian, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so like that was the number one.
We got the wooden spoon.
Oh, I had everything, spoons and thongs and all sorts of things for as a kid, and that's something we've all probably grown up with as kids. So, but look,
Marcel's in the background, horrified here, listening to this.
But look, from our perspective, that's how our parents raised us. They raised us on hard values, and as a kid, as you would probably realize, is that we hated it. We didn't understand what they were doing. Because there was not only a background that we're the first generation of Australians, it was an ethnic background. We're the modern first generation of Australians, and they're still with the understanding of the Lebanese background or the ethnic background. So me and my kids now are very different. Like we now speak on the same level, we communicate, we educate, we have chats. We never had that with our friends because we both we weren't on the same wavelength.
The parenting style, in terms of even sort of in some ways the relationship with your kids, is very different to the one that you had with your parents. And I mean, like you're talking about, the things like respect were forced upon you. You learned it you learn it very quickly how to have some respect if you stepped out of line.
Look, and look, so for me, I think they were all the values that kept me grounded. And one thing that I would say that I'm proud of myself is that I'm still humble in my views, that what I've achieved, I still have a lot of friends from school that I'm still close with. But look, definitely, without a doubt, with success and wealth does bring a lot of things with it as well. Like when you look at a sporting player who comes and signs a multi-million dollar deal, people expect basic handouts. They expect you to feed them, or you're going to have friends that want to be around you because of what you've achieved and who you are now. So in business, I think the most important thing is about how to read situations, and great entrepreneurs can read situations very, very quickly and very sharply. And that's something that I believe you can't teach that. You either have it or you don't. It's back to basic instincts and your gut values. And they're the things you look at in business, as well as your social surroundings, and knowing, am I in the right environment or am I in the wrong environment? Do I have the right friends around me? And that's come down to the situation. That's important. That's something you're going to always constantly be in the back of your head in everything you do, whether it's business, social, personal, friendship, or anything else around that.
Some of that stuff is a little bit like, I always find, if you look at sport, and it translates across all sectors, I think, is hunger, for example. If someone's hungry, they either are or they're not. Like and that's just comes from a deep desire, from something burning from when they were younger, and they've always sort of had that drive. They almost can't explain why. And there's other people who don't have it, and there's no right or wrong. But talking about things before that you can't teach, I think hunger is one of those sorts of things.
100%. Like, even in the sporting space, we talk about play. He's got a strong motor, which means this guy would just go 24/7, 7 days a week. He ain't going to stop. He's just dedicated. And you've got some other players that have got some very natural raw talent, but don't have the drive. And you see it, it's chalk and cheese. And it's the same thing in business. My motivation, my hunger was a fear of failure. That's what drove me is one, fear of failure, and two, to prove people wrong, that I could achieve it and that I can succeed in business. Because I had a lot of doubters, and I had a lot of people saying that, oh, you don't know what you're on about, and you're too young. What do you know about business? And, so for me, it was trying to prove people wrong, my determination, hunger to succeed. And that's what drove me at a young age. And they were the things that fueled my hunger and my determination.
Do those same things drive you as you get older, or do you look at things like proving people wrong? Does that become less of a thing as you get sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? As you've achieved a few things, you care less about what people think, I guess, typically. Does that change the way that things that drive you? How do you look at those things now?
Yeah, look, definitely what drove me at 20 was very different what drives me at 40s, in my 40s.
Yeah.
So look, without a doubt, your motivation changes. And for me, it's always about, what's the next motivation? The fear of going backwards, launching a new product. I always felt like, for me, I've always dumped myself into deep ends. I love putting myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable. That keeps my energy levels up, and
well, you're introducing a new fear in some respects, aren't you, to make sure you keep on going? Because if you get comfortable, you're going backwards.
Correct. So for me, it's when things go too smoothly, I'm like, well, shit, there's something going. I'm a bit nervous now because it's becoming too easy. So I dump myself into something that's completely different. I'm like, then I go to myself like, why did I ever just created my life even more work? But they're the things that keep fueling me. So pushing myself out of my comfort zone is my driver now, and that's my heat that gives me that energy that I need. And that's, for me, it is something that I've always tried to push myself, which is what I'm doing now, is really just pushing myself into new areas that I haven't done before, and make it a new challenge.
Yeah. And you've co-owned, I think, sporting teams in Sydney Kings and the Illawarra Hawks and that sort of stuff along the way.
Yeah. What
were the biggest similarities between running businesses that are in the sports field versus just in the normal business environment? Are there things that were similar or different? Because it's a different, is it? Yeah, I'm just interested in your thoughts on that.
Look, yes and no. Fortunately for me, I played the sport growing up, so I didn't go into a field I had no idea about. So I knew a lot of the player mindset because I was a player in the past. So when I spoke to players, I knew how to communicate with players, and I've got a very close relationship with a lot of players now. They come looking for advice because I understand their mindset. The business side is literally the same. You need to generate revenue. And that's what makes any business turn is generating revenue. So in sports, a lot of it's driven around revenue, merchandise, ticket sales, and sponsors. And so I've always taken what I've run in business and applied that to the sporting world, and it's relationship building. It's leading by example. But now you've got two parts. So you've got the team part, which your players are you're responsible for. And also you've got the business part where you've got the business side of things. So I think it's another form of business, and there's no real variance around it. I think they work side by side.
Yeah, okay. What about the best advice you were ever given along the way, Dorry?
I wouldn't say it's advice. I'd say it's probably a tough lesson I learned when I was 7.
Yeah. Perfect.
And it was probably with my dad. I was on $150 a week working in my dad's hair salon because he was a hairdresser. And he always had this vision to take over the family business as you do. And I went to the bank across the road from my dad's salon in Punchbowl, which is out west in Sydney. I grew up in the inner west around Portage, but we went out there and I went to cash in my check at the bank. And the guy at the counter goes, "Would you want a credit card?" I said, "What's a credit card?" He goes, "Oh, we'll give you $1,000 and you can do what you want with it. And you just pay back every month a small amount." I'm like, "Shit, really? That's pretty cool." They're like, "Yeah, I'll take a credit card." Yeah, there was no check. It's literally got the credit card. I'm like, great. I thought, shit, I got $1,000 free money here. And look, it might not sound like a lot now, but when you're on $150 a week and literally all your money goes towards just your basic things, and a business shirt back there will cost you $220 from Country Road, and your salary was $150. It's like a week. You couldn't get a shirt in Country Road. Now it's like not even it's just a basic label.
Yeah, that's right.
So I tell you what, I racked up that $1,000 very quickly, and I bought a basketball rink for the backyard, and I thought, like, great, it's cool. And I never pay down this debt. It's like every month was like $30-$40. I'm like, well, $50. I'm like, I'm never going to pay this off. And my dad knew that I was stressed with it, and he said, "How much is on your card?" I was like literally like $1,000. It still never went down because it's kept on only paying the interest off it. And he goes, "Give me a credit card." I gave it to him, and he paid it off for me. And he goes, "Don't ever borrow money that you can't afford to pay back." And I've never had a credit card since, other than now, knowing that, okay, well, credit card that I've got now, whatever I spend that month, I'm paying it back next month straight after in full. So also, it's probably the best lesson I learned at a young age is, he got me out of a very big pickle in my head as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. That's a lot on your head. And I learned that lesson very quickly, and I've never been in that situation ever since.
Yeah, it's funny, those sorts of things. Like you say, it's sort of $1,000 doesn't sound like much, and you can sort of laugh about it now. But going back in time to that point,
oh yeah,
I can imagine the stress that you were under from that, and the kind of the embarrassment, how do you just feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders. How do you get out of this mess, type of thing? And that's the good one. So don't take on debt you can't afford is the bottom line on that.
And you know what? That's something that you should apply in business right now in general. If you can't afford the loan, don't take the loan, hoping that, you're relying on too many things within the economy to not change. Now you look at, property prices, going up, and, even with the interest rates, we went through this in the GFC, everyone starts going out spending, buying properties and not realizing, well, there's no free money. The banks, the government's going to want to call that back in. And, look at how many people are going to be suffering now with these interest rates going up. So if you can't factor in changes in the economy and you're banking on this to be like for a long time, well, then you're putting yourself in a very tough situation. So, plan ahead.
You can't have interest rates go from basically 0% to 5% in terms of from the RBA or even the Federal Reserve in the US and have nothing happen, right? 0 to 5, and the thing is, people go in and borrow money. That when they're buying homes, they don't go in and say, "This is how much we think we can responsibly borrow." They go to the banks and they say, "How much can we borrow?"
Yeah.
So they borrowed as much as they can when it was 0%, or they might have been paying 2 or 3. They borrowed as much as they can, and now it's gone up to 5, 6, 7 on their interest rates on their mortgages, and now they're going to be paying double the interest or triple the interest, and the maths just doesn't add up very well.
And look, we had this literally 10 years ago or 13 years ago with the GFC. It's not like we haven't had this, 20 years. Like we've experienced this twice in our lifetime, and yet we don't learn.
We don't learn the lessons. No, people, one generation to the next forget. I mean, I deal in financial markets every day, and the stock market and different things like that. And we always repeat the same stupid mistakes. As a group, it's what people do. They don't learn the lessons. Greed drives, fear then drives, and it's very simple stuff. But it doesn't seem simple to a lot of people, is the thing. So, but
look, I always say common sense is uncommon. People don't apply common sense to things, and I guess that's probably the way certain people are wired. Like for me, I look at things in a very common sense way, and the terminology KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's why I always applied in my companies, is keep it very simple. Don't complicate your life. Don't complicate your business. You buy, you sell. It's a very simple process in business. Service. You're not going to gain business by not giving them a service that that they're going to feel comfortable with, want to come back for more. So business is not hard to achieve success.
Yeah. And
they're all basic things that we tend to forget.
Do you think some of that sort of stuff, that common sense, just comes from listening to the people when you were growing up? Because I think that a lot. Where I grew up was very similar. I grew up in country WA, and family would talk about stuff, and they keep it really simple because they are blue collar or whatever they might be. And if you listen to those lessons that are there, there's plenty to just grab a hold of, right? And if you come through the business journey with that, there's a lot of simple lessons that you can bring through.
Look, there is, and all that comes. It's just having a personality, and just being nice to people. It's not hard. Like I use an analogy when you travel on an airline and you're flying, whichever airline you're flying, the most expensive person in that airline on that flight is your captain, and you probably hear him speak for maybe no more than 5 minutes of a 14-hour flight going across to LA or Dubai. But then you'll see that air stewardess a lot of the time. And yet the guy that's flying you from A to B the safest way, you're going to judge your experience based on the service you get from that air stewardess. And if the air stewardesses are bad, so you're not flying with these guys again because the service was crap. Or I'm flying with this because they looked after me. I saw that I needed more drink. They gave me more drink or an extra snack.
Yeah.
They gave me great service, polite to me. And that's what you choose it on. So the lowest paid person on that airline.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Dictating how you fly, who you fly with. Isn't that scary?
Yeah, it is, because the expectation is that the highest paid, in effect, the superstar of that operation, the pilot, they get you there. That's the important part, right? Did I land safely? Did they execute on the takeoff, and did they execute along the way and on the landing? But we expect that to be done. And then it's the little fringe benefits, effectively, is what you're talking about, the service part, that then we start to make our decision on, which seem to matter. But no, that's a really interesting point.
That's something that I do with my staff is making sure that every staff member delivers that service to that customer. So they got that experience where, no matter what I do within this business, this is a great business that cares about my business, knows my business. I'm not going to go to another carrier to buy my thing or fly that I fly with. So whether it's a reception or a warehouse person, I really still within my staff is that service is paramount, and the way we communicate with that customer is paramount. And no matter, that's on all levels, you have that same philosophy.
Yeah. All right. I've got final 4 questions just to finish off with, some quick fire ones. Have you got any business people that really inspire you in Australia or overseas?
Look, for me, I think it's everybody. I've been a sponge growing up, and when I was a kid, one of my clients was the state manager. It was on 100,000. That was like, wow, how do I earn 100,000 a year? So headed towards him, wanted to learn off him. So for me, you got to be committed. Like I adapt in every business, every circle. I've got a lot of respect for people like Larry Kesselman out there who runs the NBL. I've met a lot of successful business people that are worth a lot more than me. But look, overall, I'm just a sponge. I want to learn from everybody, no matter how much you've got or what you don't have. Because you can always learn from everybody.
Yeah, that's a good insight. What about business books? You got a particular business book that you've ever read that you'd put up there as a favorite? Other
than my book on the back?
Well, no, that can 100% be the number one that's on the list. Everyone should go out and buy it.
But look, what inspired me to write this book and what inspired me to start my business was probably a book that a lot of people have read, and which I haven't read probably many books, and I'm not a reader other than reading papers. Probably read maybe around 2, 3 books in my entire life, which is not a good thing to be promoting. But the one that actually inspired me to start my own business was Richard Branson, Losing My Virginity. Like reading that often at the time. So look, stop talking about how you can do it. Read this book and actually, and look what he's done. And I've read it literally from start to end, and I was gravitated to it. And that's, I'm like, if he can do it, then I can do it. And that's the basis of my book is, if I can achieve certain things, then anyone can achieve it. So yeah, that's probably the one that's got me to where I am and gave me that little push that I needed to sort of get out there and do it on my own.
Great book, and really interesting entrepreneur. Have you seen he's done like a 4-part documentary type thing? Have you seen that? It's worth watching it. The first 2 episodes are really good. The next 2 after, but like 3rd and 4th, they drag on a little bit, but the first 2 are brilliant and cover a lot of that stuff that's in that book. But it's really, really worth watching.
Definitely.
What about any quotes or sort of philosophies that you would live by, or anything along those lines? Or
look, my first book, was called Power to Act. My philosophy is just to shut up and do it. Stop, just get out there and go for it. I've got a lot of friends that I've, talked up a lot, a big game, and wrote, 50-page business plans, and for me, I'm like, guys, just do the work and stop talking it and just get it done, because, I'm grateful that, all the work that I've done over the years speaks for itself now. When I was young, I had to get out there and prove myself. So I was always in a constant battle, no matter what I did that year. Oh yeah, it's a fluke. It's a one hit year. Yeah, great. You've made some money. Doing what I've done over 25 years, my resume now is my past of works, what I've done. So, and everything I've done, I've stood by. You just get out there and do it. Don't make excuses. So there's no real mottos, but it's just having the power to act. Get out there and just do the work and just follow through, because a lot of people don't follow through on their ideas.
Yeah, I think that's as good as any. Get out there and just do it. That's pretty simple, right? But not often done enough. What's next for you and for your business in the years ahead?
Yeah, look, for us, fortunately enough for us, I'm trying to slow down, but I'm still putting myself out into the deep end. So look, DKM Blue has really grown a lot over the last couple of years, which is fantastic. We've had our biggest years last year, the year before, which is, probably not normal to happen after 23 years of business. So we've had our 2 biggest years the last couple of years, which is fantastic. I've invested into Swanky socks, which is a retail sports sock, which was a startup, which we're doing, 70,000 a year when we, came on board. We're now doing in excess of 5 million revenue, 3 to 4 years. So that's a great business that, that's really taken off and expanding into Europe as well, which is fantastic. Patent products, we're rolling out a couple of patent products within our field of retail and merchandise. So I'm always evolving the business and just trying to diversify what we're doing now. So, and on the basketball front now, I'm not with Illawarra Hawks, so I've taken a back step at the moment with that. But look, basketball has been a massive part of what I do and part of my journey. And, don't be surprised if I venture back into that sporting space.
I was going to say, is that something that could be on the agenda down the track?
Look, it will be. It's my backyard, something I've loved. It's been part of my life for since I was 10 years old. It's given me what I have now. So to say that I won't be a part of it again, I'll be lying to myself. One way, shape, or form, I will venture back into it. And it's always been a part of my career and part of my life from when I was 10 anyway. So it's something that will still be a part of me for a very long time as well.
Awesome. Well, Dorry, thanks very much for joining us. It's fantastic to hear your insights on all things life and business, and wish you well in the future with everything that's coming up next.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dion.
Thank you.